My daughter was bossing me around in my own house, and I couldn't believe how much things had changed. I remember when she was little, she used to hold my hand and look up to me like I was her hero. I was the one teaching her how to ride a bike, how to tie her shoes, how to be kind, how to never give up. But now she walks around this house like she owns the place. It started small, little comments here and there. "Dad, you can't eat that, it's not good for your blood pressure." Or, "Dad, you really shouldn't leave your shoes by the door, it's messy." I used to laugh it off. I thought, she's just caring for me. But then, it became something else. She began treating me like I was a child, as if I couldn't take care of myself anymore. She moved back home after her divorce. I welcomed her with open arms, she's my daughter, after all. She came with her 2 kids, and I was happy to have the house full again. The laughter of my grandkids made the walls come alive. But soon, I noticed how her tone changed. Every day, she'd tell me what to do, what to eat, when to rest, even how to talk to my own grandkids. One morning, I woke up early like always. I brewed my coffee, the way I like it, strong and black. I sat by the window, looking at the sun rising over the yard, the same yard where she used to play as a little girl. But before I could even take a sip, she walked in with that look on her face, the same look her mother used to give me when she was mad. "Dad, you shouldn't be drinking that coffee so early. Your doctor said no caffeine before breakfast." I smiled and said softly, "Honey, I've been drinking coffee before breakfast for 40 years. I think I'll survive." She sighed dramatically, snatched the cup from my hand, and poured it into the sink. I sat there stunned, not angry yet, just shocked. She looked at me and said, "I'm doing this for your own good." I wanted to tell her that she was crossing a line, that this was my house, and I deserved respect. But she looked so stressed, juggling her job, her kids, and her own heartbreak, that I stayed quiet. Maybe she needed control because everything else in her life was falling apart. Days went by, and her behavior only grew more intense. She'd rearrange the furniture without asking, throw away food she thought was unhealthy, and constantly remind me to take it easy. It was like living with a boss instead of a daughter. My own home didn't feel like mine anymore. But then, one evening, something happened that changed everything. It was a Friday night. The kids were watching cartoons in the living room, and my daughter was cleaning the kitchen like a storm. She always had this habit. When she was upset, she cleaned everything. I was sitting at the table, trying to read the newspaper, when she started complaining about how I never label things in the fridge. "Dad, you can't just put things anywhere. How am I supposed to know what's fresh and what's old?" I chuckled, "You've got 2 good eyes, don't you?" She ignored my humor and went on muttering under her breath, rearranging everything on the shelves like she was running a restaurant. Then she opened the freezer. And that's when she froze, literally stood still, her hand gripping the handle, her eyes fixed inside. For a few seconds, she didn't say anything. I looked up, confused. "What's wrong?" She didn't answer. I saw her shoulders tremble. Slowly, she reached inside and pulled out an old, frosty container wrapped in plastic. Her eyes softened. "Dad, what is this?" I looked at it and smiled sadly. "That's your mother's last batch of soup." She turned toward me, her eyes wide and glistening. "You kept it?" "Of course I did," I said quietly. "She made it a week before she passed. I couldn't bring myself to throw it away." Her lips trembled. She stared at the container like it held a ghost. Then she whispered, "I didn't know." I leaned back in my chair, memories flooding in. "You were so busy back then, taking care of your own life. I didn't want to burden you with my grief. So, I kept little things. Her recipe book, her favorite mug, and that soup. I guess it made me feel like she was still around." My daughter's eyes filled with tears. She set the container down gently on the counter, as if it were something sacred. For the first time in months, she sat down across from me, quiet, vulnerable. We sat there in silence, the hum of the refrigerator filling the room. Finally, she said, "Dad, I'm sorry. I didn't mean to be so controlling. I didn't want to lose you too." That's when it hit me. Her bossiness wasn't about power, it was about fear. She had lost her husband, her marriage, and her sense of stability. The only thing she could still control was me, because she was terrified of losing her last anchor, her father. I reached across the table and held her hand. "You're not going to lose me, kiddo. Not yet, anyway." She laughed through her tears. "I know, but sometimes I feel like I'm the parent now." I nodded. "That's what happens when kids grow up. But remember, I'm still your dad. I may not move as fast, but I can still take care of myself." She smiled faintly. "And you can still drink your coffee before breakfast." We both laughed, really laughed, for the first time in a long while. It felt like the ice that had built up between us had finally melted, just like that old soup in the freezer. Later that night, she came to me with 2 bowls. She had warmed up the soup, her mother's soup. It smelled exactly the same, rich and comforting. We sat together on the porch, watching the stars, eating in silence. Every spoonful tasted like memory, like love, like forgiveness. She said softly, "You know, Mom used to make this every time we fought." I smiled. She believed soup could fix anything. My daughter nodded. Maybe she was right. After that night, things changed between us. She stopped bossing me around. Oh, she still worried about me, that's what daughters do, but she learned to do it with gentleness instead of control. She'd ask instead of order. "Dad, want me to make you breakfast?" instead of "Don't eat that." She respected my space again, and I respected her struggle. We found a new balance, not father and child, not 2 adults competing for control, but 2 people learning how to love each other differently. Sometimes, when I open that freezer now, I smile. The soup is gone, but the lesson remains. Inside that cold box wasn't just frozen broth, it was a reminder of what really matters. Family isn't about who's in charge. It's about understanding why we act the way we do, forgiving each other, and remembering that love sometimes hides behind the sharpest words. A few weeks later, my daughter told me she got a promotion at work. I congratulated her, proud as ever. Then she said something that made my heart swell. "Dad, I couldn't have done it if you hadn't reminded me who I am." I asked, "And who's that?" She smiled. "Your daughter." Now, every Sunday, we have a ritual. She brings the kids over to the kitchen, and we all cook together. Sometimes we make soup, not her mother's recipe exactly, but close enough. And every time, before she takes the first sip, she looks at me and says, "For Mom." I nod, and we share that quiet connection, 3 generations sitting together, remembering, forgiving, loving. It's funny how life works. You think you're losing control, you think someone's taking over your space, but sometimes they're just trying to protect you in the only way they know how. Love doesn't always sound gentle. Sometimes it sounds bossy, sometimes it looks like nagging. But underneath, it's just fear, fear of loss, fear of loneliness, fear of what life might look like without the people we love. If you're a parent listening to this, and your grown-up kids sometimes act like they're the boss, don't be too hard on them. They're just scared to lose you. And if you're a son or daughter, remember, your parents still need their dignity, even if they're old. Respect goes both ways. That day, when my daughter opened the freezer, I thought she'd just find old leftovers. I didn't realize she'd find her mother's memory, and a part of herself. And me? I found my little girl again, not the bossy woman with the sharp tone, but the same child who once ran into my arms crying because she'd scraped her knee. The same one who believed her dad could fix anything. Now I know, maybe I can't fix everything anymore. But I can listen, I can forgive, and I can love her like I always have. Because in the end, that's what being a parent is all about, not control, not authority, but love that never gives up, even when it's misunderstood. So yes, my daughter was bossing me around in my own house, until she opened the freezer. And in that simple moment, when the frost met the warmth of memory, we both remembered